because I mark this down as my own limitations versus limitations of the market. So I'd like to hear from Turaj is tell us about voice mashup business models for the consumer. Is it really a advertising sort of play? Really, where does it go?
That's a great question. I think the way we look at it at Jaxtr, it's a combination of advertising and transaction subscription revenue. Actually, there are very few businesses that actually happen to pull all that off. You can look at some successful consumer web companies such as LinkedIn that has actually done pretty well with that. And our CEO happens to be a co-founder of LinkedIn and their chief marketing officer. So we have some of that kind of philosophy as well, so that if you can generate a lot of users for your service, and on top of that, for your power users, provide them with ways to purchase premium subscriptions as well as do transactional things when they need it, then you can bring all that together and actually have a pretty powerful service.
Okay, all right, got it. Bill, I have a question for companies, for your company and companies like you. And one of the things I love about Jaduka is they have a very clear mission of doing CEBP for the enterprise, and you almost are. As I think about your competition, it's going to be coming from places like Deutsche Telekom, because in a way they'll have the same sort of APIs, except that Deutsche Telekom will have these existing enterprise relationships, right? So what I'd like to hear are your thoughts around how moving forward, Jaduka and places like Jaduka, because you're a leader at the moment, right? And with your success will have others come pulling after you. Do you think that your relationship will get closer to Deutsche Telekom as being an arm that they can rely upon, or do you think it's going to grow up to be more adversarial as time goes on? It's a huge question in terms of their guys. Tough question, I know.
It is tough. I guess right now the way that we look at it is it's a very big market out there, and that there's plenty of room for even companies the size of Deutsche Telekom or BT or Orange or whoever are also talking about getting into this space, for us all to generate a nice return.
Yeah.
One of the things that people may not realize about Jaduka is that we are actually we're a spin out from our parent company, Network IP, which is a traditional telco. You maybe had heard Pete Patula this morning, who was in the general session, talking about the company's capabilities. It gives us a unique perspective on business model as well as our approach to the market, because Jaduka's charter, in one sense, really is to leverage the inherent capabilities of our parent company. So different than a startup, maybe just coming out the door with one goal. We have 10 years of experience that we're now taking and able to deploy against real business problems, which has a number of different implications. And so it allows us, I think, gives us a few things. One of the things is a little bit more staying power, I think, and a little bit more flexibility in our approach to different business models. But your question was really more, how do we compete long term against some of the very large companies also entering this space? And I think it's, we're all going to find our niche, I think. And so long as we're providing value, we should get adequately compensated for that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you can make the big pie argument. That's for sure. I would agree with that. So Brent, one of the things that I always feel, like for instance, here on this panel, we've got service provider, service provider, service provider, service provider, right? Right. But that's not really the entire ecosystem of voice mashups, right? And a lot of this is consultative work that goes. We've all mentioned that as you go down the line, right? So tell me about your partnerships. So do you see that the larger companies, the larger consulting companies, are aware yet that this is an issue? I mean, like, for instance, I don't know if you all know Avaya, obviously. But Avaya's been banging the CEBP drum for quite a while. I know that in the financials in New York, they're sick of hearing Avaya bang the CEBP drum. But do you see large consulting companies getting into this market quite yet, or what do you see?
I see a few things. I think there's certainly a software element of it, and then I think other companies that are addressing the market may have more of a consultative approach. We have both arms is the way that we address it. So we understand that it's a hosted solution, but customers may also need for the plugins and to develop the content, consulting for business process optimization, et cetera. Companies, our partners are companies like SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, Adobe, and what's driving those, I think, is that the realization that things today that the vendors have typically addressed user experience and connectivity through enterprise portals or a client-based solution, and they understand that there's a big changing workforce out there. So the newer kids that are coming in, I mean, I'm addicted to BlackBerry energy drinks, and they're multitasking, multi-threaded. They're doing IM, emails, voice, all at the same time, and that's a big change. And our enterprise customers are realizing that. I mean, naturally, CEOs are worried about compliance and profitability, but there's another element of being able to be prepared for the new workforce. And I think that the pressure from that is helping to drive some of the partnerships with the large companies and that realization.
Right, cool. Could you bring it all the way back down to Irv for a second? Because I want to do a check with Irv.
I thought it was safe.
You're not safe. No one's safe. No one's safe. So one of the things which is really great about your service is it really brings the barrier down, right? If you can web script, you can do your stuff, right?
That's correct.
Which is great. It's good stuff. So my question is to you: do you have examples of customers, partners who web scripting guys who've actually taken it and used it successfully? Because they're not on this panel, and I love them as a company, so I'm not picking on them at all. But if you're familiar with a company called Serena, anybody? Serena has a remarkably large IT footprint, and they have the best customer list in the world. And they're working on enterprise mashups, which are the larger world of voice mashups. And their contention is that the problem with the IT departments of the world is that they can't get all their stuff done. So if they make mashups really easy to do, then they can have their secretaries and admins doing mashups. And all I could think of is the CIOs having a complete willy, right? I can't imagine the CIOs can be very happy about, oh great, my admin's programming. So tell me, so is it working? Is it really happened?
Yeah, it's really working. I'll give you an example that's going to be actually publicly announced tomorrow.
Yay.
There's a new company called Jump Forward. Jump Forward is solving a very simple business need for Big Ten or NCAA sports teams. If you're an NCAA coach, there are a lot of rules about how you have to communicate with potential athletes, because they don't want college coaches going down into high schools and making claims that are inappropriate. They want to make sure the athletes get an education in addition to learn how to bounce a ball. So the Jump Forward has gone into a business that there are other companies doing, which is to create a website where a coach can register every contact that they make with a student athlete. And then Jump Forward will put that information in the appropriate format for submission to the NCAA. NCAA, by the way, is not just the biggest universities. It's pretty much any university in America with a sports presence. The problem